Well, the East Bank is also historically considered part of Palestine. So why aren't Palestinians asking Jordanians for the right to self-determination? And another add-on to that question, and I think many Israelis have, is why not go to Jordan, which already has an overwhelming Palestinian population, and make it a Palestinian state?
Yeah, I think that's because the nationalism was. I mean, you're kind of. If you look at the borders of the Middle East, they are in some ways they're not drawn up along like, where these are, these ancient tribes or clans had their history in. They're drawn up along, you know, whatever terrible ideas the British had, and different colonial powers in the region. So it's not so much about the borders. When it comes down to it, it's like there is a Jordanian nationalist movement that kind of unites Jordanian people. And the need for the Palestinian national movement was you have this other set of clans, families that are all going through the same struggle, the same, you know, issue, effectively, expulsion from the land that they had lived in for hundreds, thousands of years. Um, and so there is the birth of Palestinian nationalism. It kind of defines itself around a particular border. And so there's a lot of families in the East Bank that are very related to families in the West Bank, and even more so today, frankly, with intermarriage between the two peoples. But the identity is about a specific part of the land. Certain tribes are just from particular areas, certain clans are from particular areas. People are attached to their area. I'm from, and not only that, but you're talking about people where it's like, this is not thousands of years ago. We aren't returning to a, we're not talking about a place where we have, it's not about it being the source of our, the birth of our culture or the birth of our, religion or people or ethnicity, and sort of like, it's not just about it being a homeland. It's also like, we just like in some cases, like your grandfather built this thing. Like this isn't a long time ago. I mean, when you and a lot of the old cities, the old balads in Nablus, Akka, Nazareth, and all these, different areas, these aren't that old. I mean, a lot of these clans and tribes that are there today, they have grandfathers and great grandfathers who both fought for, died building some of these structures. Um, so the history is quite intimate and it's very specific. It's not like I can go, well, I'm going to go to the Salt, I've got some relatives there. It is very much about like, this is the land that I have been in, this is the land that defines my identity, and this is where I'm from. So the fact that Palestinian nationalism has drawn itself up in the only borders that ended up mattering for political reasons, sort of British Mandate period, kind of has nothing to do with people's connection to the land. Um, your connection to the land just comes from the area that you're from. It is why partition solutions still struggle to this very day. Because if you have a family that's originally from Akka, they're originally from Akka. They're not from. You can't tell them to go live in the West Bank. That's just not where they're from. And this isn't thousands of years old. This is three generations. I mean, it's your grandfather or your great grandfather. Um, in many cases, a lot of these structures that these people are going through, it's just like there's some cases where people are still alive, like they actually remember being there. Some cases you have photographs. Um, this isn't a very long time ago, and it is very, very specific. And then as far as the identities go, they, it almost makes up entirely who you are. If you're from a clan, it's defined by your region. There's all sorts of great stories where a family in a particular region would leave, so they'd go to some other neighboring state. They go to like Syria and Jordan. They'd come back, and because they'd been absent for a generation, people would like rename them. They'd like rename their family because they've been away from the land too long. Um, and your kind of status in the society, you'll have clans that are from, let's say, like Jenin, that have been in, Nablus or Haifa for some number of a few hundred years or 300 years, and they still are totally considered to be from their original source identity. So it kind of like doesn't matter how long you've been there. This is people clearly know the area that you're from, the area that your group of people defines itself as belonging to. So it's kind of not something you can really sever, any more than I could sort of tell Jewish people to go to go to a different region. It's like you go, this just is the area that you identify as your homeland, and it is the same thing for Palestinian people. Um,
Right, but Jews don't constitute 60% of any foreign country, like Palestinians constitute nearly 60% or yeah, 60% of the Jordanian population.
I mean, at one point they did. I mean, at one point they were all over the world, right? Jewish people were in Iraq, they were in the diaspora. So you're mostly outside of the place that you called home. So the
Hmm.
fact that most Palestinians are inside of, you know, pushed to the side, it's sort of beside the point. I mean, it speaks more to, it speaks more to the ethnic cleansing that has occurred, and like the ethnic cleansing that has occurred over the last 70 years than where those people feel home is. Now, if a Palestinian if a Palestinian is born in Jordan, identifies as Jordanian, that he sees that as their homeland, that's all well and good. Um, but if they desire to return to the homeland, the same way you have this like notion of aliyah, where anyone can kind of return to this place that is supposed to be their refuge. Um, it is very much the same idea. I mean, it is just the same spot, and it is such a brief period of time. Like it'll be thousands of years down the line, people will still say, oh, "I'm from this particular village in Jenin." You can build, you can kind of knock the village down. You can build soccer parks or stadiums over it, but it's in like people's last names. It's in their identity. So in the same way, you have tomorrow Jerusalem. We have the exact same mindset. It's kind of never going to go away because it's just who you are. Um, and I think understanding that, I guess, on both sides kind of helps people save themselves the effort of thinking that like Palestinians are ever going to accept, or Jordanians either. It's like it's not like they're you can put the East Bank aside and its interrelationship with the West Bank. Like you also have old Jordanian Bedouin tribes that have been in Jordan for a long time, and they have their own identity, and they have their own culture and history. Um, and though there is like tremendous love and tremendous bond between the two people, that's not the same thing as this idea of like a watl badil. Like it's not watl badil. It's not. No one accepts it. Not the Jordanians nor the Palestinians, and everybody kind of knows where they see their home as being, and that's. I think no amount of like political negotiation is ever going to change that.